ever wondered why some people seem to have a gift for music? Have you ever wished that you could play by ear, sing in tune, improvise and jam? You're in the right place. Time to turn those wishes into reality. Welcome to the Musicality Podcast with your host, Christopher Sutton.
Today I wanted to talk about Overwhelm. Recently, I put on a free training series in support of the new course we were launching, Foundations of a Musical Mind. And if you're on our email list or social media, or you're a member of Musical U, you will have heard a ton about that already. But you might not have caught the free training we provided before the launch on the subject of complexity in music. Now, part of this was going into the nitty-gritty of what makes particular skills like playing by ear or improvisation complex. But first, I tackled the issue of general complexity, feeling like everything is just too hard and complicated in your music learning. This bit of the training really resonated with people, this feeling of overwhelm that can end up stifling your passion and creativity and enthusiasm for music. So I wanted to share a quick excerpt from that training with you here today, where I run real quick through the most punchy advice we give on this topic here at Musical U. I mention a handout and a podcast episode in this excerpt, so I'll put links to both of those in the show notes for this episode. If you've battled this problem of overwhelm in your musical life, and if you're like 99% of us musicians you have, then I hope you'll find this framework useful for pinpointing the source of that overwhelm and figuring out how you can squash it. Musical complexity. As I mentioned at the beginning, I believe there is a single root cause of most of the complexity that may be plaguing you in your musical life. And in the next session, we'll be discussing that in detail and how you can unravel it once and for all. But first, I think it's important to address the overwhelm part of complexity. Not any one topic or skill seeming complicated or difficult, but the simple fact that there are lots of different things vying for attention in your musical life. And what's worse, it can seem like even when you do manage to focus in on one area, that sends you down a rabbit hole, and suddenly even that one area seems vast and overwhelming. Tell me if any of these sound familiar. Someone in the survey said, I really struggle. Someone said, I dabble in lots of things but never go far. I'm reluctant to sign up for anything new until I complete the courses I've already started. We end up developing many bad habits and waste a lot of our time. I wish I had more time. I want to particularly pick up on that last one, lack of time, because it is one of the most common frustrations among musicians that I have ever encountered. And I'm not going to deny it. Your lives are genuinely busy, I'm sure. If you're anything like me, you have a packed work or study life. You've got a family, maybe even kids or other family members you look after. You have responsibilities in your local community. And somehow on top of that, or squeezed in there, you have your passion for music. And you might even have another hobby or two that's battling for precious time each week. It can feel like you're pulled in 1,000 directions and everything is yelling out for attention. Wherever you choose to spend your time, there are things you end up feeling guilty for neglecting. So there is a real challenge there. But what I'm going to propose to you in this training is that lack of time isn't actually a cause of your lack of progress or your frustration with music learning, even if it feels like it right now. Lack of time is actually a symptom. It's a symptom of the complexity that's going on. And we're going to be talking now about what you can do about that overall complexity. Then in the next session, about some of the skill-specific complexity that comes up in music. I've seen repeatedly with our members at Musical U that it's possible to fit in enough music practice time to make steady progress forwards, even among the busiest of lives. But there is no time to waste, so it's essential that you crush the complexity and use your time as clearly and effectively as possible. That's what I'm hoping this training is going to equip you to do. So let's get into it. For this topic of overall complexity, I'm going to be talking in terms of overwhelm, because I think that's the emotion it most stirs up. When we think about our musical life and there's just too many moving pieces and too many tasks and everything seems interrelated and complicated, the result is that we feel overwhelmed. It can feel like a great crushing weight that paralyzes us and makes it hard to take any action at all. And so it's normally that overwhelm itself that becomes a big barrier for us. Because if we tackle any single area of our musical life, we'll do fine. There are some that are in themselves complex, and we'll be talking about that next time. But if we assume that any one bit is manageable, then what we really need is tools and strategies to handle the overwhelm. I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 big causes of overwhelm and strategies for tackling each of them. You can use one or more of them, and they're most effective when used all together. In short, we're going to be talking about where are you going, how are you going to get there, and how can you ensure that your journey is successful. Now, if you've been following us for a while or you're a member of Musical U, then some of this will be familiar to you, and there is a lot to pack in here, so I'm going to move quickly. But whether the ideas are new to you or not, if you take a few minutes to think about each of these and how to apply them in your musical life, you're going to find those feelings of overwhelm quickly start to fade away. Since I'll be going through these fast, I'm going to also provide a handout with more detail and examples for you. And of course, if you have any questions or need help, just shout in the comments. The first of the 3 is about vision and goals. The easiest way to feel muddled in music is to dive in without being clear on what you're actually trying to accomplish. You know you're enthusiastic and excited, but when you just combine that with all there is possible to learn, the result is total overwhelm. Instead, you need to begin with the end in mind. Set a clear picture of what you want to accomplish, what we at Musical U call your big picture vision, and then figure out what training goals are going to lead you to that vision. Just setting a goal though, any goal, isn't necessarily enough. Not all goals are helpful. So at Musical U, we have a framework called the MAGIC framework for goal setting that helps you make sure that the goals you set really will work for you. I'll put details of that in the handout for you. If you can't say immediately, right now, what your big picture vision is, and what your current goal in music is, ideally a magic one, then I would say that is the number 1 cause of any overwhelm you're feeling. Fix that first. And a quick side note, because I'm sure some of you are thinking it, how many goals should I have? The answer is try to keep it to just 1 for each major area of your musical life. I'm not going to insist on a singular focus across all of your musical activities, but if, for example, you're taking instrument lessons and working on ear training and starting a band, then having a single goal for each of those 3 would be appropriate, and it would help you to avoid overwhelm in any of them or overall. So once you have a clear vision and a good goal, you need to figure out how to get there. You need a plan. But like goals, not all plans are created equal. What we found most effective is a 6 to 8 week training plan leading towards your specific training goal. Break it down into about 5 steps that lead you there in sequence. Factor in all 3 of the essential aspects of music learning: instrument, theory, and ears. Plan on spending at least 15 minutes each day, most days. Try to keep to a fixed schedule where possible. Don't overdo it, a little and often is better than the occasional epic practice session. And plan for where you'll get help if you need it. Now, I could talk at length about the reasons behind each of these recommendations, but if you're looking for a shortcut to creating a plan that will work, I suggest starting with this. Of course, the details of what goes into the plan will depend entirely on the goal you've set, and that's a whole other topic. Right now, we're just talking about crushing complexity and ridding yourself of that feeling of overwhelm, and I can guarantee that a plan like this is going to do that for you. Now, it's all well and good having a suitable goal and a plan, but that only alleviates the overwhelm for about a day. After that, it's time to actually do the thing. So you need some strategies for ensuring that your journey is actually successful, that you follow through on your plan, and that you reach your goal. There are 2 big pieces to this. The first is progress tracking. It's easy to get overwhelmed in the midst of a plan if you lose track of where you are and what's next. So there are various techniques that can help here, including having a practice log, which is just a list of what you did each day, keeping a progress journal, which is a more detailed and descriptive and reflective account of what you've been doing. You can record yourself and listen back. And you can try and keep up a streak of practicing day after day and never missing a day. Those things will all help you to stay clear and motivated in following your plan. But what if there's a problem with your plan, or you hit a point where just putting in the practice isn't moving you forwards? That's why the other big piece of ensuring a successful journey is having support. This can come in the form of teachers, coaches, musician friends, accountability buddies, or whatever support options are provided along with the training resources you're using. Now, I'm just going to pick up on that point for a second. I'll provide a link to a podcast episode I did about this because it's really important to understand what support for an online course should look like. Because that word can mean a huge range of things, and the right kind of support can absolutely make the difference between you having easy success and you feeling frustrated and overwhelmed. So I'll link to that podcast episode for more info on that. So those are the 3 big causes of overall overwhelm and what you can do to tackle them. If you have a clear vision, set a magic goal, create an effective plan, track your progress, and get suitable support, then those feelings of overwhelm will quickly disappear. If you feel overwhelmed right now thinking about your musical life, then ask yourself which of these is missing. Put it in place, and you're going to start feeling much clearer and more confident in everything you're doing.
Thank you for listening to the Musicality Podcast. This episode has ended, but your musical journey continues. Head over to musicalitypodcast.com, where you will find the links and resources mentioned in this episode, as well as bonus content exclusive for podcast listeners. That's musicalitypodcast.com.